Hello everyone, I can see a few of you are coming in now. We will just wait a few minutes for everyone to come on in. Welcome to episode 4 of the How To Academy Small Business Masterclasses with the Great British Entrepreneur Awards and Salesforce. These masterclasses will arm you with actionable steps that you can take within your business to improve processes, plans, and outcomes. In today's session, we're joined by founder of Just Williams, Jessica Williams, as she shares her top tips on how to build a strong small business sales team. In this session, you will learn about the key strategies for hiring a strong sales team for your small business. It will explore how COVID has impacted the sales role and trends within the profession, focusing on how to attract and retain the best talent. There is an opportunity to ask questions during the session, so if you have a question you'd like to ask Jess, you can pop this in the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen, and we'll do our best to answer these towards the end of the session. And with that, I'll pass over to Jessica.
Fabulous. Thank you, Chloe. Good morning, everybody. It's fabulous I can't see you, but I know you're all there, and it's still a shame that we're doing things virtually, but it's great because it means that we can connect from across the UK. So thank you so much for having me today. I'm going to share my screens now for you, if that's okay. Let's have a look. Can I get a thumbs up, or Chloe, can everybody see those?
I believe so.
Fabulous, thank you so much. So welcome everybody to this session, light bulb session this morning. I can't believe it's September, I don't know about you, but suddenly the summer has gone and we are back into, perhaps for every single business, one of the busiest quarters of the year. So today's session, I've got you for about an hour, but I really want to make sure that this is a really interactive session, that you get the most from it. Chloe's going to put my details up in the contact box so you can get in contact with me afterwards and ask any questions. But let me start by just giving you a little bit of context about who I am and why Chloe's asked me to talk today. I've been a judge now for the Great British Entrepreneur Awards for the last probably 3 years. And I've been running a sales organisation for the last 7 years, and I am just in the process of launching a new business. So I may be entering the Entrepreneur Awards next year, actually. So my new business is the Just Williams Sales Academy Online. We've been running the Just Williams Sales Academy for the last 2 years through the existing business, and trained over 1,500 people. We're just in the process. It's the 30th of September. We're launching an online business called the Just Williams Sales Academy. And so Chloe has asked me today to talk to you around building a sales team and how you can develop that. And I'll be really frank with you today. I've had some fabulous experiences. I've also had some very challenging experiences over the last 7 years for developing a sales team. So let's get going. Please be as interactive as possible. Feel free to butt in, to come off mute, to talk. We are going to have some polls throughout this session. As I say, Chloe's going to make sure you've got my contact details afterwards, but I really like my sessions to be interactive. I don't know about you, but I much prefer presenting face-to-face rather than online. But hey, we shall do our best with what we've got. So let's start. Now, I tend to fill my agendas really quite full, okay? So we have got a lot to go through today. I want you guys to get the most out of this and to really make sure that you can maximise this time as much as possible, because I'm a big believer as a small business owner like you guys are, that, you know, time is our scarcest commodity, so we've got to use it well. So you might think that this growth mindset is a little bit cheesy, but you and I have been on a lot of different sales training, or lots of different training. And, you know, I think sometimes we're all a little bit skeptical. So I'm hoping that I'm going to maximize this time for you well. I think, you know, sometimes we all have a perception of sales, and it's still a bit of a dirty word, isn't it? Let's be honest. But let's put all that to the side for today, and let's look at how we're going to grow our businesses, how we're going to scale our businesses, and how we're going to hire superb salespeople that are going to support us to do that. So we'll go through developing a sales strategy, which may seem a little bit of a strange thing for this agenda, but I really believe that you fundamentally have to understand what you're trying to achieve before you look at anything else. And therefore, understanding your sales strategy and having one before you employ a salesperson is utterly essential. We're going to talk about attracting talent. How do we make ourselves employer of choice? Now, it's really challenging, this part, because as a small business, as you guys are, as I am, we can often get overshadowed by some of the bigger players that can offer bigger salaries. So we're going to talk about that and explore that in a little bit more detail as how we can stand out. We're going to talk about training talent. So once we've acquired these fabulous people, how do we upskill them? Do we need to upskill them? How do we make sure they stay on the top of their game? How do we make sure they're as productive as possible, as efficient as possible, using the right resources? We're going to talk about professional development. Now, again, this is obviously my subject area and something I'm really passionate about, but sales doesn't really have an entry criteria, which is one of the reasons that I've set up the Sales Academy, is that, my ethos is professionalising the sales industry, is anybody can say they're in sales, and actually there needs to be a standard there, which is what we're trying to create. And professional development is really important. So we're really championing in association with the Institute of Sales Professionals, which is the national body, a standard, and really making sure that actually salespeople have CPD points on an annual basis, as they have. And I think that's a really key part. And we're also going to talk about how once we've attracted the talent, once we've trained the talent, how we then retain the talent, because that's another really key part. And I can give you loads of stats in regards to the average time that salespeople serve. It's not very long. And, as a small business, I've been there. It's really painful because you've invested a lot of your time, a lot of your resource in regards to finding these people, training them, helping them along their journey, and then they leave. And it's happened to me quite a few times. So I'm not suggesting that I'm an absolute expert on this, but I've got hopefully quite a lot of experience, good and bad and very ugly, that I can pass on to you. We are going to summarise and go to a Q&A, but I really would encourage you to ask me questions throughout. Put your hand up, whatever you need to do. Chloe's going to facilitate that for us. Okay, so this is a really kind of key place to start, isn't it? Okay, so from a mindset perspective, I reckon you've all got a perception of either the word sales, the role sales, what you're trying to achieve when it comes to sales. I just want you to ask yourself for a second, which one of these are you? Not necessarily for this session today, we've already talked about that, but when it comes to your perception, your mentality when it comes to sales. I think it's still a little bit of a dirty word, and I've been in it for a long time. I did an MBA and specialised in sales psychology, so I've got a lot of research in regards to this, and it's a fascinating subject. But let's be really frank here, shall we? We've all got great businesses, great products, great services, whatever your business might be, and that's that. We all know the journey that's taken us there. As I say, I'm in the process of launching a new business, and I'm pretty exhausted at the moment, as I'm sure a lot of you guys are with running your businesses. But let's be really, really frank. We can have the best product or service in the world in our minds, but if we can't sell it, there's not a lot more we can do. So sales, whether we love it, whether we like it, whether we think it's like Marmite, is an essential part of our business. So, sometimes these perceptions that we've got, right and wrong, or indifferent, are something that actually we need to think about the impact that that's going to have if that's our perception. I'm not going to stress that point anymore. So is everybody still with me? I'm hoping. Let's look at sales strategy. I think this is a really key part for us to start with. Now, again, I've kept these slides really simple. You can have a copy of them. I'm not a massive fan of kind of death by PowerPoint, you'll be relieved to know. But let's start with the sales strategy. Okay. Now, I'm just going to ask you a question. Chloe, could I possibly have the first poll before we go into this? Right, so we've got a poll here. We've got it's really self-explanatory. Who already has a clearly defined sales strategy? So we've got options of 100%, 50%, or not. It's anonymous, guys, so don't panic. There is no judgment from my perspective if you haven't got one. Okay, we've got 10 out of 16 people, so wait a second. Oh, 50%, that's good. Hey, listen, you've got something. Just wait. 68% participated. I did warn you it's going to be interactive, guys. I'm sorry. I think learning can be so dull, so you've got to make it as interesting as possible. Oh, one more. 75%? Any last partakers? A few more maybe? Okay, so far, let's have a look. Who already has a clearly defined sales strategy? Let's have a look. Right, okay, so we have 25% of the 100 has absolutely got one nailed on. 58%, 58% of people are kind of halfway there, and then we've got 17% that haven't started. Okay, well that's good. That's good to know. Thank you very much. Has everybody seen that? Let's have a look. So let's talk then about the sales strategy. And again, you might think this is a strange place to start when it comes to developing this, but for me, it's a really, really essential aspect because, sorry, I'm just going to take that off the screen. It's a really essential aspect because you've got to understand what your ambitions are as an organisation before you look at developing your sales team, because they're coming in to develop on your ambition. That's the whole point. That's why you're developing a sales team, is because maybe it's something that you simply haven't got the time to do anymore, or that you want to bring in external expertise, that you want somebody to really focus on the growth. And I talk about sales in a generic fashion, regardless of product, service, industry, sector, geography, etc. So having that sales strategy to start with is really, really important, and it's hugely essential for you to know exactly who your target demographic is, why you're targeting them, what you're looking to achieve from them. Now, on the left here, I've got a really simple model that we use. As I say, it is simple. I believe in keeping it simple. Is that if you have an existing client base, this is a really good starting point for you to understand really what your ideal client looks like, or what you're trying to achieve. If you haven't got an existing client base, you can kind of put some theoretical figures in here in terms of this is what we'd love to achieve. Once you know what you're trying to achieve, you can build your client profiles and your demographics around it, which is really, really, really important. And you can start to develop okay, well, this is where we want to be in the next year, 3 years, 5 years. You can start to then break down a plan as to how you're actually going to get there. And that's really, really essential when you're bringing on a salesperson, because they've got to understand what they're there to do, what your ambitions are. I'm not going to read through it, but I'm happy to share it at any point. So for those of you that have got a sales strategy, fantastic. Make sure that, as I say, you are you're really engaging that when you bring your salespeople in. For those of you that haven't, maybe just spend a little bit more time trying to develop what it is you're wanting to achieve. Now, forgive me if I'm teaching you how to suck eggs here. That plan, Chloe's probably going to kill me for saying this, but that plan is something that will evolve and that will change. I think sometimes we all procrastinate, don't we, about that plan, thinking, oh God, it's got to be perfect. No, you've just got to have a plan. You've got to evolve it. You've got to understand that it will change, and it will evolve as any sales plans do, because of, let's look at the economy and the climate over the last 2 years. If we didn't adapt our plan, then we would be the definition of insanity, I'm sure. So when it comes to sales strategy, these key questions are really good things for you to look at, whether, as I say, you've got an existing portfolio of clients or you're looking at developing portfolio of clients to start with. If you can understand these, you can start to understand a lot of metrics. You can start to create measurables there, which is a key aspect when it comes to salespeople. Okay, let's move on, she says. Okay, so when we look at that 12-month strategy, there's loads of questions here, sorry. I did say I wasn't going to do death by PowerPoint. There's an awful lot of questions here. Key things for you to consider when you're developing it. Yeah, there's, again, forgive me if I'm teaching you how to suck eggs here, guys. I'm sure you've already got this nailed. But for those of you that maybe are kind of that 50% or are just starting, absolutely consider these questions. Again, I don't want it to look overwhelming for you, but these are key considerations that you need to look at. Okay, I'm going to pause there. Has anybody got any questions relating to this slide at all? If I get stonewalled, then I appreciate it, but you can keep them to the end. But has anybody got any questions? So I prefer face-to-face because it's a little bit more interactive. Right, okay. I'm sorry, guys, I can't even see you, so apologies if any of you are trying to comment right now. Okay, so there are a lot of questions on here, but these are really, really essential when it comes to you know, developing that role profile for your salesperson and attracting the right person. Let's move on to the next slide. Chloe, keep me posted when the next poll's coming up. Right, okay, so let's get down to the crux of what we're talking about today. Okay, so to attract the right salesperson, to attract the right person to your organization, we started by saying how important it is to have a strategy. And the reason for that is, can you imagine walking into an organization, or can you imagine walking into any role, whatever it might be, and just saying, right, there you go. You have no direction, you don't know what they're trying to achieve, you don't know what the overall ambition is or what the vision is of the organisation. That's very difficult to meet the expectations. And, you know, I don't think any of us go into a role to not deliver. I don't think many of us go into a role to just be mediocre. You know, I think, and from a sales perspective, it's a really, really crucial part. So, you know, I think it is, and again, I'm not gonna flower things up for you. It's really hard hiring salespeople. I'm sorry to say that to you, but it is, and I have a lot of experience of it. And the job market at the moment is really, really tough. So just to give you a live example, so this time last year we hired a business administrator specifically in a sales role. And they had quite a diverse role. We had about 380 applications. We've just hired somebody again this year, pretty much exactly the same. We had 13 applications, and that is mirrored across all sectors, pretty much all industries, all geographies, and pretty much all sector specific and role profiles. The job market is very, very challenging at the moment. Average salary rises have gone up. People have just gone through, obviously, as we all have, a very challenging time. So it's a very difficult time to attract talent right now, unless you have a significant budget. So if you're looking at hiring talent, my recommendation would be to maybe delay it until next year, if you can afford to do that, because the job market is so up and down at the moment. It's pretty much like the housing market. It's very, very challenging. We haven't got a lot of stability. And my fear is that you would pay more than your salesperson is worth. So let's talk then. I'm sorry, I've told you that it is hard to attract talent, and it's really hard to attract salespeople. So let's maybe look at this from another perspective. And I'm a huge believer in hiring for talent and training for skill. Okay, I've hired, my best salespeople haven't been from a sales background. My best salespeople have been people that I've brought in because I've seen a spark and I've found something from them that I think is fantastic, and then I've trained them up. So hiring for talent and training for skill, I think, is a mentality that's used for an awful lot. Now, some industries and some sectors, you do have to have, you know, I'm talking oil and gas or nuclear or pharma or something like that. Often they require a certain level of qualification in that industry, even from a sales perspective. So, you know, that it is a bit of a change. I appreciate that. So you do have to have that skill base. And again, I've got lots of stats, and some of them I'll share with you later about, you know, potentially if you employ somebody that is a little bit more experienced, their longevity with you may be enhanced. But when it comes to attracting talent, there's some things that, you know, we've got to be very aware of, isn't there? Is that we're all kind of, you know, in a fishbowl, aren't we? As people can see us from so many different angles these days. Think about when you make any form of purchase, you do your research. You know, you've got so many different platforms at your disposal these days. Social media, you know, referrals, friends, lots of different ways. The internet, so many different ways that now we can access information. So think about, firstly, the perception of your organization, of your brand to the outside world. Are you an employer-led brand? Are you an organization that's just pushing out messaging about your product or about your service? Or are you talking about online why you're a great organization to work for? Because that's what people are going to see. You know, why would people want to come and work from you bar than what you just say in your job role? Because everyone can say whatever they want in a job role, can't they? But why would somebody want to come and work from you? And this is where there has been a real shift in dynamic now, is that actually there's a real scarcity in regards to job hunters. So they are more demanding, to be quite frank. So this is very much two-way. It's very much two-way. You've got to sell to them as much as they've got to sell to you now. You've got to say, this is why I'm fabulous to work for. This is why actually my organisation is fantastic. And again, I've been that, you know, and I could tell you all over a glass of wine my first employee story. I'll write a book about it one day because, wow, it was dramatic. But when you hire your first person as an organisation, you know, it's such a, it's just overwhelming, isn't it? Because, you know, you know the pain you've gone through to grow your business to be able to hire your first person, salesperson, or whoever it may be, you know, and you know that you've got so much relying on that person. As I say, I absolutely speak from experience here, as you can tell, and therefore it's so important. But I just want you to consider how your organization is perceived externally. Okay, if you, and it might be worth you getting somebody, whether you've got a mentor or whether you've got a colleague or a buddy or a friend, whoever it is, they've got to be objective to look at it and go, okay, is this an organization I want to work for? How are you being perceived externally? And that's a really, really important part, because actually everybody's recruiting at the moment, pretty much. There are so many organizations recruiting. You are operating in a massively saturated market. And think about what platforms you use. I don't use recruiters for various reasons. I use a variety of platforms, but really think about the platforms that you're using. Think about, again, when you know the markets that you operate in. We've talked about your client demographics and your client profiles through the sales strategy. Think about where those people are going to be, how they're going to be, and therefore where you need to publicise your role as much as possible. If you use a recruiter, make sure they're absolutely aligned to your values, and make sure you confirm your fees up front. When it comes to the job profile, I mean, you know, I've trialed this year, actually, interestingly, I had a couple of sales roles and I got very little traction. So I trialed different variations of the job description, of the actual title of the job, of that, and actually found that, you know, if the more quirky you make it, the less people are likely to apply. You know, you've got to do what it says on the tin. This is just my opinion. It's just my perception. I saw somebody the other day who had CFO on there as their title, Chief Financial Officer, Chief Fun Officer. So I still not quite sure what they do, but just make sure your role description does what it says on the tin. Okay. And when it comes to success, you know, let's be really frank here. If a salesperson can't sell to you, there's an issue. So make sure you are qualifying them, but make sure the messaging that you're putting out there is about the success of your organization and actually what you're trying to do. Make sure you really do a thorough skills analysis of your salesperson, of the person that you're attracting. We've talked about an employer-led brand. I'm a big believer in having that personal. None of us are corporates here, I don't think. So, you know, I think there are lots of reports available actually. And again, I'm happy to send links after this about what employees are now looking for when it comes to working for an organization. You know, there's a lot more focus on well-being, on agile working, on eco-friendly businesses. Just consider the type of organization you are and the type of person that you want to work for. They're the people that you need to, you know, you need to really try and attract, and therefore that terminology needs to be reflected in your job description. The biggest tip I can give you, and again, I know this is a little bit cliche, is, you know, when I set up my first business, it was, you know, we took any work that we could get, and, you know, it was, we all do, don't we? You know, we've got financial targets, etc., to meet, and financial responsibilities. When it comes to recruitment, you know, I think sometimes we just think, oh yeah, you know, that's absolutely great. The first person that you see, to a certain extent, be really careful. You know, if you don't think you found the right person, and the best advice I can give you here is listen to your gut. If you don't think you found the right person, do not hire that person, because they will cause you more harm than good. So being personable is really key. So making sure that you're a really personable brand is really important. Don't pretend to be a corporate when you're not. Employees don't like that anymore. That's not something that, you know, they want to know who they're talking to. You might do a vlog to recruit people. I ask for blogs now, 2-minute blogs, when I'm recruiting, because it's a key part of a salespeople's role. They don't do it. I simply don't invite them for interview. So you can think about lots of different ways, that you can do that. I think there's a key question here in regards to when it comes to attracting talent. Are you looking for somebody that's cheap and that you can train up and therefore that has no experience, or are you looking for somebody that's got more experience, but that will be reflected in the remuneration package they have? I can't make that decision for you. That's got to be up to you. I've tried both and had varying degrees of success from that. I've trained people up and spent a lot of money on them, and they've left because they've been offered a lot more, and I as a small business couldn't afford to match that. But that's a key decision that you need to make when you think about the type of person that you're wanting to attract. One thing that I think we've got to be really frank about is that we've all undergone a significant period of change in our lives over the last 2 years, and actually, yes, I think to be frank, I'm being rather presumptuous here, but I think we all want a little bit of stability, and therefore, I've just hired a girl who had her induction with me on Monday. And I said to her, why did you choose us? Why did you come to us? And she just said, you provided me with a long-term plan. So I've given her a 5-year development plan, or we've worked on a 5-year development plan together. She knows what she can achieve if she performs. And that's really brought her into my business, which actually is brilliant for me because, again, I don't know whether you guys have had that flux, but hiring and hiring or firing or staff leaving it just provides such a deal of flux in an organization. When you're trying to grow, you can really do without it. So think about the candidate awareness journey. This is not something I'm hold my hands up. This is not my slide. The candidate awareness journey, it's one that I found, which I just think is really great, is that people don't just look on one profile now to find out the job description. They look at you from every degree. So do think about buddying up with somebody to be able to see what the perception as a potential employee, what they will see for your brand and why they would apply. If you've got existing staff, then why don't you ask them either anonymously, easy for me to say, anonymously or actually openly, why did you come and work for our organisation? Get that feedback, because that will really help you to develop the role profile when it comes to the type of talent that you're looking to attract. Is that okay, everyone? I don't know if there's any questions or if we're okay. Chloe, are we all right?
Yeah, we've had a few questions in on attracting talent, so I'm not sure if you want to answer some of them now.
I'm happy. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So we've had two that are quite similar, saying, what's your favourite interview technique for sales role, and what interview techniques would you use for a sales role? So very similar questions, but just around interview techniques for a sales role. Good question. So obviously during the pandemic we were recruiting and obviously had to change our tack. So we have a 5-step application process now, which you may think I haven't got the time to do or is very thorough, but again, I speak from experience. We implemented this after a range of different changes at my business. So one of the first one is an application online. We then ask for a blog, so a 2 or 3 minute blog, dependent obviously on the role profile. We will then invite to a half an hour informal chat online. So we'll just via Zoom or something like that. And when we get to that stage, there's always 2 of us that interview, and we have a scoring system. So we've just developed it in-house. It's a range of questions. It is informal, but let's be honest, what interview is ever informal? Obviously, we're assessing the applicant, and we score them independently, and we then kind of review as the 2 of us to see whether what our thoughts are. And we ask a range of really informal questions. For me, because for me, it's all about the person. I ask questions about the person. I can see the skills from the CV. Now, I don't really need to know that. That's not what, for me, the interview process is about. For me, it's about making sure that actually they get the opportunity to ask you as many questions as you ask them, because this is a 2-way street. This is not you're in the power seat and they're not. It's a 2-way street now. They're judging you as much as you're judging them. And then the final process is if we're happy with all of that, they come into a face-to-face. And we have, in the last year, trialed a different approach. So we get they're in with us for 2 hours, and we sit with them for the first 20 minutes, ask them a couple of questions, and then set them a task.
So they have an hour and 40 minutes, sorry, about an hour and a half to complete a set task. We'll check on them halfway through. They don't get any preparation time. They go in it because, you know, again, for you guys, it's all about productivity. It's all about, you know, how quickly and efficiently they can work and how much they can use their own initiative. So towards the end of that 2-hour period, we'll come back in and we'll assess what they've done. We'll get them to talk it through with us, which shows a lot of different skill sets, and we'll give them about 15 minutes to ask questions as well. And that has proved relatively beneficial. So whilst it takes longer in terms of that 5-step process, we found that actually it works better. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, we've had 2 questions come in as well that you just touched upon, so feel free to expand on them if you'd like to. The first one's from Alison, that says, do you have a skills competency-based interview or relay on their CV? I know you just touched upon that, but maybe we can answer that a little bit more as to what the benefits are with that.
I don't do a skills competency based, I rely on their CV, but we've also got a skills gap analysis that we go through in line with the job description. So we do that, but just in a slightly different way. And that's what, I think sometimes you can overcomplicate these things. I like kind of keeping things as simple as possible.
And then another one you've just touched upon, but what should I be looking for in a new sales hire, and what is the most important quality for someone to have? And that's from Harry.
Oh, Harry, that's like the $1 million question, isn't it? Right. I haven't got the silver bullet in regards to this. I'm really sorry. But I, as I say, I did an MBA in sales psychology and talked about the non-negotiable traits that I like from my salespeople. And I'll be honest with you, I've changed since I wrote that 6 years ago, since I've kind of gone through a lot of hiring of salespeople. I think that you've got to decide based on your business and your values what your non-negotiables are, and you've got to have like a non-negotiables and a nice to have list. It does depend on what type of sales they'll be doing. For me, it's very much around somebody that is driven, that's proactive, that's engaged, and I've got a whole list of kind of values. And we've got one of the things that we ask them to do as well, actually, is we have a list of values, like I think it's 100 values or something crazy on this list, and we know what ours are, and if they've done their research, we ask them their 5 top values, because we can see that there is that match there. But that is something that you've got to decide based on your business and your values and what your products, services, etc. are, what type of person is going to be best, whether they've got a hybrid role, whether they're doing account management and sales. It very much depends, but I'm happy to pick that up offline, Harry, if you want to ask me further about that.
Fantastic. Well, I'll hand back over to you, Jessica. And if you have any further questions, please just pop them in the Q&A and we will answer them towards the end.
Fabulous. Okay, so we've gone through, as I say, quite a lot there. Let's have a look at the next. Do you know what? Don't you love technology? Right, so let's talk. So we've talked about attracting, we've talked about sales strategy, how important that is, and then attracting talent. And then let's talk about kind of training that talent. So you've hired them. Okay, I know I'm making this sound remarkably simple, and believe me, I know firsthand it's really not. It's taken me 5 months to find the person I've just hired. So let's then have a look at, we've got a poll here. Okay, so let's start by when are you guys looking to hire a salesperson? In the next 0 to 6 months, 6 to 12 months, or 12 months plus? Let's have a look. Oh God, you're really fast at this one now. Wow, you guys are ambitious. I like it. Okay. So majority of people are looking to hire in the next 0 to 6 months. Sorry, and I said to them, don't hire this year. That's fine. That's fine. We can work with that. We can work with that. Right. Okay. Can everybody see those results, Chloe?
Yeah, everyone should be able to see those now.
Fabulous. So I can see why you're all on this webinar now, because you're all looking at hiring in the next 12 months, which is great. Okay, so let's then talk about training talent. So 86% of you are looking to hire in the next 0 to 6 months, which is very exciting, but also terrifying in equal measures, I'm gathering. Okay, so let's have a look. So, when it comes to when it comes to attracting people to your business, and it really is attracting people to your business. Let's talk about once you've hired them. Okay, now hopefully you've been able to outline your really clear strategy in regards to what you're wanting to achieve as an organisation. And let's be honest, as the business owner, no one's ever going to be as passionate and ambitious, and well, maybe not ambitious, but no one's ever going to be as passionate about that vision as you are, because it's your baby, isn't it? You know, again, you can say, I'm passionate about this, I love it, it's what I do. But you know, how are we now looking at making sure that we retain our people? So I've put some stats up here which are quite interesting. There's some really kind of interesting stats when it comes to actually training salespeople. But one of the key tips that I can absolutely give you is make sure you have a sales training plan for your staff. Make sure, as I say, I've just worked out a 5-year plan. It will evolve with one of my team members. I've got a 5-year plan for my business. I know exactly what I want to achieve in that 5 years. And actually they've really bought into that, because again, what did we talk about? Stability and that need to be able to feel that they've got that stability in the longer term. And sales training is a really, really important part. You know, we touched on the fact that there isn't a lot of entry criteria when it comes to sales, and therefore you may hire somebody that's got loads of experience, you may hire someone that's got no experience. But you know, if you do a skills and gap analysis, and that makes it sound much more fancy than it is, but if you, in essence, if you understand what your, you know, what your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats are, which is a really simple way of doing it, literally do a SWOT analysis, get your new person to do that when, you know, in the first 30 days, get them to really assess their own SWOT analysis in line with the role description. That'll give you a really good indicator if you don't want to do a full skills gap analysis, but there are loads of templates online in regards to that. You know, you can really understand where their gaps lie, and that's something that you must review on a frequent basis. I don't do annual performance reviews. I do monthly one-to-ones, and that's something that I've trialed into, you know, over lots of years, and I find that much more preferential, especially from a sales perspective, doing monthly one-to-ones. And we have pro formas that we look at in regards to behavior, performance. IDPs are a big part of that. You know, they all flow into that, so you're not just, it's got to be proactive. You know, you're not responsible for your salesperson's IDP. They are responsible for their IDP. And one of the key questions that we always ask in an interview is, what does your IDP look like? You know, if they say, well, I haven't got one, well, that tells you quite a lot. You know, what are your ambitions in terms of learning? When was the last time you did training? When was the last time you learned something? What was the last book you read? All these different types of things can tell you a lot about a person. But I would very much, you know, encourage you at the outset to get your salesperson in the first 30 days to develop their own IDP over a 12-month period. I've got a template on here as well, which I'll show you in a moment. Again, really basic. You've got a 12-month template, but you've also got a short, medium, long term. Really, really important that they know where they want to go to, because actually one of the key things is once you've attracted someone, you want to retain them. We don't hire people to get, you know, for them for a year, do we? Because I know, and you know, the cost to you that it's taken you to get to that point. I've invested over the years in a lot of external training for my staff, and they're not all with me, and it's painful financially and emotionally, because, you know, let's be honest, when it's your business, it feels like rejection, doesn't it? It's like, just split up with someone, you kind of go, what do you mean you don't want to work for me anymore? So, you know, if you've got that 12-month plan that they're invested in, that they're really engaged in, the likelihood is that they're going to be committed to you too. And there might be a two-way street in terms of the fact that you're investing in learning, external learning for them. But there is a commitment, and you can build that into your contract. And again, I'm happy to take that offline if anyone wants any tips in regards to that. So I want you to think then, what is your employee journey? You know, I think one of the key things, and obviously this is in partnership with Salesforce, you know, you've got to make sure that your salespeople are as productive as possible. And Salesforce is a perfect example of providing, you know, resources and solutions to help that efficiency, to really help that productivity when it comes to that. You know, you look at the tools that Salesforce have, and it really, really supports that. You know, your salespeople might never have had the use of Salesforce or another platform. You've got to make sure that they've got that learning available to them, that they've got the access to those resources available. So I want you to think about what is the employee journey. So once you've hired somebody, or if you're looking at hiring someone, I know you're just kind of thinking, right, I've got to hire someone. I want you to think about what their 12-month journey looks like with you. That's a really essential part. Is that all right? Am I okay to move on, Chloe?
Yeah, That's great. Thanks, Jess.
Sorry, I'm just checking if there's any questions. Right, so let's talk about professional development then. Again, I know we're all kind of going, oh my God, there's so much to think about. And so we are, with the Just Williams Sales Academy, we're an endorsed centre through the ISP, which is the Institute of Sales Professionals. That's the national sales body. Now, there's been quite a lot of changes in regards to national bodies from a sales perspective over the last 12 months. There was the ISM, which we were the founding members of in the Northeast, and they unfortunately, well, they are no longer. They were acquired by the I can't remember, APS, the Association of Professional Sales, who have now rebranded to the ISP. I mean, God, we love acronyms, don't we? So the ISP is the national body. Now you pay for membership as an individual, and this is something that I'd really strongly recommend that you do for your salespeople. I don't think it's particularly expensive. You get membership through them through our online sales courses, which I'm happy to mention later on. But they are the national body, and what they are is they kind of set in that standard. And so professional development for me isn't just about attending a couple of training sessions every year for CPD points. But it's about much more than that, you know. And so, you know, when you look at your salesperson's IDP, I want them to build, and I want you to make sure they're building in things like, if you're using Salesforce, right, well, make sure they're doing you know, there's loads of courses that Salesforce do. Get them to do an hour's training a month in regards to that. Get them to make sure that they're reading the latest kind of publications. The ISP have just done a big report for the APPG. Sorry, it sounds like I'm talking in tongues, doesn't it? The APPG in regards to how sales is influential. You know, I mean, something that's fundamentally shifted the world of sales this year is, for the first time ever on the census, sales is a category. Sales is actually a profession. We've never had stats as a profession from sales because it's always been merged by marketing. Yet from this year, you know, it now stands in its own right, thank goodness, right? But, you know, you can find out all of these different things, and there's so many different white papers, there's so much industry knowledge. You know, that professional development's just huge. The ISP have loads of training modules. I'm not on commission by them, by the way, at all. I just think it's really important that actually sales is professionalized and that we do have that industry accreditation. And if you think about you guys from, you know, from your consumer's perspective, from your customer's perspective, if your salespeople are endorsed or if they've got that standard, that, you know, reflects really well on your organization and that you're committed to investing in your salespeople. There's loads of different things that you can do here. You know, as I say, I'm a big believer in CPD because I think it really encourages. CPD stands for continued professional development, by the way. So, you know, you might want to set your salespeople a target of X amount of CPD points per annum. That's a great way to do it, but you have to give them the time to do personal development. Now, there's that expectation it does internally within your time, but also in their own time. But all these different things can you know, have a huge benefit on your business because you are expanding your brand profile. You're getting them to be engaged in different networks, associations, clubs, forums, whatever it might be. But also, it's really making sure that you're investing in your salespeople for the long term. Okay. Right, I'll move on. So yeah, this is the template. Again, really basic. Obviously ours are all online, but this is just a really good thing. This is good for any role, by the way, not just sales. But I think this is a really good thing for you to get your salespeople to do, but also to make sure that actually they're doing it and that you're talking it through on your regular kind of get-togethers, one-to-ones, whatever it might be. And happy to share this afterwards. So let's talk about retaining talent then. You know, yeah, it's pretty depressing stats, right? Yeah, and I've experienced that, and some of you may or may not have experienced that as well. You know, it's salespeople do move around a lot. They absolutely do. I think, again, I haven't got actual stats on it because it's never been monitored, but my thought process is that salespeople move around more than any other profession. And I'm sorry to be quite frank about that. So you've got to balance that. You've got to be aware of that, and you've got to do everything you can to mitigate that. Now, I don't, which is again very controversial, I don't pay commission. I don't believe in commission from a sales perspective because I think it drives the wrong behaviours. I believe in paying my staff really well, as much as I possibly can, but I know what the market rate is and I know what they're worth, so I won't pay above that. But I also believe in creating, and I think somebody asked a question on it, a superb culture which is not salesy, which is not kind of so hard focused sales based, which is very different to a lot of my counterparts. So, you know, for me, it's about that culture, and culture is absolutely key, you know. And, you know, culture's like the new innovation, isn't it? Or innovation is the new culture. It's one of those words that's massively overused, and nobody, if you ask 10 people, they all give you a different definition. But for me, it's sales is, again, it's got a negative connotation because it's hard pushing, and it's kind of very target related, and it's very this. For me, that's not what it's about at all. Yes, we have, you know, I have so many KPIs for different clients, but it's so much more than that. And so for me, retaining, you know, talent is a full-time job. You know, retaining your salespeople once you've attracted them, you've got to constantly go back to why they joined you, why you picked them, you know, which is why you one-to-ones are really, really important reflective periods for you and for them. You know, remind them why they came to you, and, you know, make sure that you're reviewing that on a regular basis. There's some kind of key lessons that I've learned, which I thought might be useful to share with you. And again, if they're obvious, I apologize, but you know, I think we're all on different stages of our journey here, so I thought it would be useful to go through these. So have a clear vision of mission, pretty obvious, right? Create that employee journey. That's really important. I mean, I do loads of seminars and webinars in regards to creating customer journeys and prospect journeys, but how many of us have got an employee journey? Again, don't overcomplicate it, keep it simple. Have a company-wide training plan. You know, you've seen some stats in regards to so few people train their staff. Or continuously train their staff, but it's such an important factor. Make sure that continuous development is part there. Encourage IDPs, really, really important. I mean, I say encourage them, they're kind of a non-negotiable for me and my team. Create that agile working environment. You know, salespeople, you've got to be careful with salespeople when it comes to agile working environments, but with the right resources, which is really, really key, you can it allows you to manage that productivity, you know, and having the right resources is a key way for you to retain the talent that you're attracting. If you're difficult to do business with, if you don't have the right resources, platforms, tech, whatever it might be, you're not going to retain anyone. Lots of people talk about people leave bosses, not organizations, or people leave organizations because of the infrastructure, and both are true. So make sure you have got the right resources, because not only will it help you retain talent, it'll help you with productivity and your efficiency as well. Relationships work both ways. You know, employers no longer have the upper hand, and they probably never should have done, but you absolutely don't. You know, I've been a number of organisations that I work with have been approached by competitors. Their employees have been approached by competitors offering significantly more. You know, it really is a gloves off market at the moment. It's really aggressive. So, you know, it's got to be two-way. They've got to, you know, you no longer have that opportunity. Engagement, really, really important. Feedback, really important. If you want your employees' feedback, then get it, but do something with it. We've talked about resources, we've talked about line management, clarity and transparency. I probably overshare, but I've done that through undersharing. So maybe think about that boundaries. Just remember, it's always the little things. You know it as well as I do from the brands that and organisations that you engage with. It's always the little things that matter. It's not about, you know, flashy kind of, you know, giving them a company car. Don't even do that, or anything like that. It's always about the little things. Right, gone through absolutely loads today, a hell of a pace. All right, I hope what I've gone through has been beneficial. Oh, sorry, one last poll quickly. Have you ever had an issue, by the way, with retaining people? Sorry, forgot about that one. God, you guys are getting really quick at this now. Oh, I want to speak to someone that said never. Pretty mixed bag there. Yeah. Okay. So we've got a really mixed bag there in terms of retaining. So 40% of people, about 75, 30% of people, yeah, 50%, and then never had an issue. Fabulous, lucky you. Do share your secrets. I think retaining talent is often the hardest part. You know, we can attract them and we can train them, but I think retaining them is certainly the most challenging thing. Hopefully we have covered an awful lot of content today, from the importance of having that sales strategy to start off with, to how you are attracting that talent by being that employer-led brand. Think about budging up with someone, thinking about that personal approach. We've talked about kind of training talent, how important those IDPs are, how creating that industry standard is very important, how that's got to be, yes, two-way, but you want your salesperson to be as proactive with that as possible, and how it's not just about online courses and development. There's a lot more to self-development than just that. And that obviously comes into the professional development as well. We've talked about retaining talent in terms of how you can make sure you're an easy to do business with, that you're listening to your employees, that you're engaging with them, and it is always about the little things. So I hope that's been really useful for you. I'm launching Just William Sales Academy online on the 30th of September. This is not a sales plug in any way, shape or form, but I've done loads of these webinars in terms of people that are looking to employ people, and I'm a small business owner. And so what I've done I've set up a new business, which is the Just William Sales Academy online, with a business partner, and we have developed a range of individual modules for small business owners and for small businesses, because this is a real issue. We'll launch in November a range of courses as well, which are accredited and endorsed by the Institute of Sales Professionals. But these courses are here for people like you and me who have gone through this process or are going through this process. This is either for you or your sales teams. We've priced it in a really cost-effective way. So if you want any more information, we're not launched until 30th September, but give me a shout. Right. Is there any more questions, Chloe?
There are a few more, so we'll try and I appreciate that we are a little bit over time. So if you do need to jump off, please feel free to jump off. And I've included Jess's LinkedIn in the comment section, so you can get in touch with her directly there if needs be. So we've had one from Brandon, who said, I've hired someone in sales who has a great experience and a brilliant CV. They've been with us for 5 months without any new clients. He is on salary and commission, but has never earned any commission, so he's been a straight up cost. With a sales role, what is considered acceptable in terms of time before bagging new business?
Great question. It depends on what your sales cycle is. So if they are completely new to market, as in they have no experience in your target audience, in your target market, it depends on if your sales cycle is 2 years or 3 months. It depends on what level of data they've got, what level of support they've got. I don't really look for salespeople to make sales until after 6 months, which is challenging, which is why sometimes 12-month probationary periods are better. But you need to understand what your sales cycle is, and quantify the pipeline. So presumably you're using some form of CRM system, so you can assess the pipeline, you can assess the data, you can assess maybe remember that original slide when we were looking at what your ideal client looks like, what that process looks like. If they're following that, if they're assessing that, then build that into your one-to-ones. But it does depend on how long your sales cycle is. If you've got a 2-year sales cycle, after 5 months they're not going to have made any sales, but you want to understand what pipeline they're developing, and really whether they are online to hit potentially their sales target by the end of the year. Does that help?
Thank you. And we'll end on this question. I know we've touched on company culture throughout the whole presentation, but this question is, how important is it to put your company culture out there to attract and retain salespeople?
It's really important, but actually it's not about putting it out there, I suppose, per se. They should get that from your social media. So, that should already be out there, because it's a huge important part of what you do. So it's not about necessarily pushing it. If you have to push it, it's not really a culture, it's kind of a forced aspect. This is just my opinion. I think people will perceive your culture based on their knowledge, so again, feel free to have a look at our stuff, because people will perceive things differently. I think, you know, you've got to be really frank and open and honest in regards to what you're putting online. It has got to represent your culture, and therefore you people that are looking at retaining or looking at coming to work for you will automatically assess that. You want me to put the previous slide on? Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jess. Well, that is today's session. So I'd like to say thank you to Jessica for joining us today and sharing your knowledge and expertise. Our next session will be in 2 weeks' time with Daniel Priestley, as he'll be discussing how entrepreneurs enroll people into their vision and lead fast growth companies. You can head to our website. I've just popped a link in the comment section. So it's www.greatbritishentrepreneur.com/how-to-academy, and you can find all of our future sessions on there. So thank you very much for joining us today, and thank you again, Jessica.
Thank you very much, guys. Lovely to meet you all, and appreciate your time today. I know how precious it is. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Goodbye, everybody.